Today, not only am I going to use my own voice as a sampler in Vibe Voice, but I have to confess to maybe having got something a bit wrong in the memory video, or not. It's turned out to be much of a muchness, and far it from me to question the gods, but I needed to know the difference. So, today I give you the T5 text encoder shootout. So I have been banging on for a while about my memory trick, which involves swapping this out the T5 11GB file size text encoder, and I have been replacing it with this chap, the 5GB file sized quantized version. What is the difference, I hear you ask? Well, that was my question too. When wanting to know answers such as these, it is best to ask the gods, and I didn't want to disturb them because, well, it's not that important. But as luck would have it, I posted this to a chap in need, and one of the gods ordained to tell of my error. He won't like me referring to him as one of the gods, so henceforth he shall be referred to by his earthly name, that rapper Devin Geezer, Kijai. So here is what Kijai had to say about my quant solution, which, if you recall, I used on the assumption that it was giving me better memory squeeze.
That still reserves more RAM than the cached node would, because it doesn't reserve anything. It still offloads it to RAM when it's done. The cached text encoder in the wrapper removes the whole model, so it has zero memory.
To be clear, I have no idea what Kijai sounds like, but I kind of imagine it might be something like that. Soft, gentle, kind, unassuming, yet also commanding, I think you'll agree. But back to the point. In fairness to thee, it worked. Swapping out the original T5 text encoder worked at a time when I needed a squeeze, or my memory did. And that was back when 1.2.2 first came out. Ever since, I have religiously swapped out the original T5 file you see here for the quantized T5 you see here. So is it better or isn't it? Let's find out. So I used it in the new VACE 2.2 WAN 2.2 character swap out workflow that I am currently testing with great results, and will show you in the next video. What we see here is the original OG wrapper T5 text encoder that is a whopping 11GB in file size. Let's check out what it did to my lowly 3060 RTX 12GB VRAM GPU with 32GB of system memory and a large static swap file on an SSD SATA drive. Did you follow that? Probably did, because I am talking really slowly. And there is a reason for that. This audio sample is taken from a recording of one of my audiobooks where I tried to speak properly like. I'll get to the point, and let's get this done. It's loaded the 11GB text encoder into memory, and I watch the commit area to keep an eye on where it goes. So that went without a hitch, and we are into the first of two samplers. It would be the high noise model of the WAN 2.2, and it's loaded the VACE 2.2 module as well. Together they are 19GB in file size, and I talked about that curious thing in the last video. Yes, I have only 12GB of VRAM, but as you can see here, 19GB of model and module files hasn't even filled it. Weird, huh? This is the FPH E5M2 WAN model, and same for the VACE module. They are not small files, but they are scaled. Onto the second sampler and the low noise WAN model. It's held fine, but you can see from the commit that it has thrown some peak, but still no so I am fine with that. The only thing that matters at this point is how long it's going to take to finish and what the memory looks like when it does. And there it is, completed in 19 minutes, and clearly keeping the model in memory, which is fine with me. It will make the next runs quicker, or would. What I am going to do now is restart ComfyUI and run the same test with the quant version of the T5 text encoder to compare it. So I restarted ComfyUI and already see it is going through a lot quicker. But that figures, since this is a 5GB text encoder file, not 11GB. The memory is climbing, so let's see how it goes. You can see on the GPU side that it looks exactly the same as it did in the previous test. Nothing different there, and that was expected. But jumped ahead to look at the second sampler, we can see they are pretty much exactly the same. The only difference I am seeing is that the Quant T5 text encoder is using less commit memory, but not by much. At this point, the only possible difference will be in the time to finish and the load left in RAM. When we get to the end of the Quant test and can see it finished in 16 minutes, which beats the 11GB T5 text encoder by 5 minutes. And again, that is to be expected, since it is time it took to load it into RAM. What I didn't know was how the memory would look when it finished. And let's compare that for a moment. But first, let us hear what Keyjai had to say about the memory part.
That still reserves more RAM than the cached node would, because it doesn't reserve anything. It still offloads it to RAM when it's done. The cached text encoder in the wrapper removes the whole model, so it has zero memory impact.
Again, that one's actually Keyjai. I have no idea what he sounds like. But we are looking at the Quant Memory Q6T5 text encoder load after the workflow is finished, and it remains sat in memory. And let's compare it to the T5 full model text encoder load when the workflow for that run had finished. Honestly, I was expecting something more dramatic, but based on this, and simply for the fact it is done in 16, or I should say 17 minutes to be more accurate, but based on that, I will probably stick to using the Quant T5 text encoder unless someone gives you a good reason not to. And I think that is it for this episode.
Hi, sorry, can I just butt in here for a moment? Is this going to be a regular thing? Because, well, I'll be honest, being made to sit out in the corridor for the last 15 minutes is a little demeaning, quite frankly. You know, I am an important person and extremely busy. I have places to be.
Sure, no problem. Back on for the next video, maybe?
Can I just give you one piece of constructive criticism? It is just a minor thing.
Well, I was talking to the chaps in the canteen a moment before, and I'm not sure how best to put this, but you sound retarded.
On for next week, then.
Yes, next week. What? Sure. Is my nose broken? I seem to be bending a little to the left. And you should probably get that seen too. Knife wounds can be tricky to stitch up.